You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Okay, hopefully we're going to get Gregory now.
Hello.
Welcome, Gregory. How are you doing?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Of course I can.
Okay, welcome. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please do tell us where you are this week and how's the weather where you are?
I'm in Lund in Sweden and it's been very warm.
Okay, same here. And as I was saying, the dear listeners, if you want to contact us, I've given you the UK number. If you're outside of UK, the number to contact is 0044 79 444 31366. You can again call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to start with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message, in the light of truth, by Abrushin, is the spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through their intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, again, to remind you, the topic tonight is taking things for granted. And you can join us in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Gregory, taking things for granted, it's like this is something people probably don't think much about it, because that's exactly what the words tell us, that you assume things and just carry on as your life as normal, and then suddenly something might happen and wake you, oh, that's not how it is. That's what I thought it, I just assumed it was that way. So it's like we're like in a sleep mode, not really watching or thinking about what's around us in a deep way. So I want to ask you, what are the dangers, of walking this, thinking or acting this way, that you take things for granted, making assumptions and or even presumptions even?
Well, the question says, or the expression, which is the title of the discussion, is taking things for granted. It suffices for one to take an example and to illustrate what it means to take things for granted. A simple example is that of one's health. If one takes his health for granted and doesn't care for one's physical body, or because he thinks, oh, everything is okay, before long, the necessary exercises and the necessary nutrients that the body needs will gradually decline. And in that scenario, the body becomes weaker and weaker. Before one realizes the impact of it, we find that it will have to, the personality will need to review everything again and say, oh, how do I manage this? How did I arrive at this? So there's always a need to reevaluate whatever has been granted to us. That means the physical body should not be taken for granted. The same thing goes with, what we care to eat, the way we care to exercise our body, and what seems so obvious, which is basically the knowledge of life. We wake up, we sleep, all these things are taken for granted. And because of that, there is no deeper reflection. Many a person now behaves like a robot, assumes he's there. No inner steering as to understand what it's all about. And that is the biggest danger, because the deeper inner reflection, which enriches the spirit, is then lacking.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And something else occurred to me. We think, you're born, you grow up as a child to an adult, you have a career, let's say get married, children, home, let's say all these earthly things that we take for granted. But then one day, let's say you get hit by a car at the age of 30, say, or you get a heart attack out of the blue, and suddenly your life is gone, at least on the earth life, let's say. And, obviously the relatives or people close to you are affected by that. And then what about the potential you could have had, if you had lived your full life, let's say, there's another, in this case, I haven't said if it was this accident was like carelessness or it was, somebody else, just let's say, I know we say nothing happens by chance, but let's say it was not expected that something should end this way. So again, you start to think about you should value things in life, and every moment. So I want to turn this into a question somehow. So how can we appreciate, Gregory, this opportunity of life, that we don't take things for granted?
It's very difficult to have a prescription, a general prescription for everyone, for the needs of a person, or the needs of different people differ because they are different people. Man should know his needs, what he or she needs to be able to function correctly. The only thing one may add to this is one should be more inquisitive. There are basic things that one should be looking at. Why am I here? Because one knows one was born here on earth. What have I come to do here? And definitely, we know we will not be here forever. So what happens when one has dropped one's physical body? So basically, one is looking at the entry into the earth, the activities that one needs to engage in, and finally, where will this lead when one has left? That means when the physical body has gone prostrate, it's no more active. And that is what we call the transition, which generally is called death. So these questions should leave no one in peace. One should keep probing and probing.
Thank you for that. So that shows that we should be exploring. You know, like you said, we can't live like a robot. There is a purpose, and we've got to be willing to discover that this purpose. Now, again, there's so many, let's say, philosophies, so many teachings, and things that our, let's say, parents bring us up with, that we could say, again, we take, let's say, whatever background we come from, we've taken that on as for granted, and we just adopt them. And you have said we should question it. Now, if you question everything that you come across, it's like you can't really be at peace, because, or even can you get an answer to some of these questions, because you can endlessly ask questions, and is there a possibility of having answers to all these questions?
That's a very good one you mentioned. There are two types of seeking or questioning. And when one mentions questioning or asking question, it arises from the word quest. And the word quest means to really seek. The seeking can be done in two ways. There is the intellectual seeking, and there is the spiritual seeking. The intellectual seeking will enable you to know things which are limited to the earthly conceptions of space and time. That means of your immediate environment. For example, you find someone who here on earth, in order to be able to interact with others, needs to learn the norms or the language to be able to communicate with others. So one needs to question, say, how do we really speak this language such that that particular personality will not mess up that which has already been placed here within the earth. Here we are speaking English, communicating, and if you don't understand, you ask question. Most of these things, like we said, in the intellectual domain, they need to be questioning. Then there's the deeper one, which is basically spiritual seeking. That basically is the inner part of man, which is of spirit, seeking to know more than what it already knows in the past. It needs to experience here on it so as to become matured. The spiritual seeking is what has driven many to different teaching, because they are not yet contented. But there is no need to go from one place to the other, unless, however, in doing that, one matures in the process, and in even searching in the wrong way, one finds that it doesn't give one what one needs. Here we now have a teaching, or we have a source of knowledge which we now refer to as in the walk in the light of truth, the grail message. This walk explains the basic laws which govern not only that which is limited to the earthly conceptions of space and time, but explains everything about creation, which creation will belong to this particular creation. It gives us or tells us what we have come to do, how we need to proceed in order to fulfill our quest, which quest basically is a spiritual quest for spiritual maturity, which started long ago when we as human spirit gems set out from the paradise of man as unconscious spirit gems in order to experience and develop those innate qualities deep within us, be matured enough in order to go back home as self-conscious personalities from where we can continue to walk for all eternity. This work explains the laws of creation, how they bring everything into being, and how the processes which abound within creation. So it is there for those who are seeking spiritually.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, as Gregory referred to the spiritual knowledge, which the Grail message. So if you are interested to get a copy of the Grail message, or just wanting further information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. That's www.grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And Gregory, you said a lot there about the spiritual quest, and then the intellectual, I don't want to say quest, but intellectual questions that people have. So you've distinguished that the important questions are the spiritual questions, and why we are here, what's our purpose, where we're going. And you also mentioned that word consciousness, where you could say through we're experiencing life and we're becoming more conscious or becoming more awake. So that's, or mature even, becoming more mature in our journey. So my question then is a little bit following on from the question before, which is, out there are so many teachings and so many, so much information, if I can put it in that way. You can't really absorb it all. You can't read it all. There's just like innumerable, let me put it, writings and information out there. What sort of, one question could be, how can you know which are the writing which is the correct one, or makes sense, or is, let's say, the truth, which actually is truthful, or it's even put it with because the truth is, lots of places have truth, but then how can you know that truth is not mixed with something that is not something that has got, let's say, distorted or is incomplete maybe, or it will not, something like that. How can we the thing is, what I'm trying to say, Gregory, these are things that we don't really know, we are trying to discover. So we don't even know the end point of our journey, when we're asking these questions. We just ask, oh, why was I born? What is my purpose? And then what happens after I die? Is there, it's sort of a ridiculous question, I could say. Can you know that what you're looking at or what you're examining is answering everything that you need? Because, as I said, there's many such writings. Many of them do contain the truth. How can you sort of have an idea that, or should I say, this is there's one path, or there are many paths to let's say, in this journey of life?
Strictly speaking, there is only one path to the journey of life, but there are variations. The one path to the journey of life is that path that fulfills unconditionally the laws of creation, through which creation came into existence. So, but there are variations that people take. The paths may seem manifold. In one's striving, when one strives to fulfill the laws of creation, by the responses he or she gets, the personality is drawn higher and feels very happy because it's drawing higher, closer home. If, on the contrary, that personality doesn't strive to fulfill the laws of creation, that person senses that he or she is bound and unable to have any inner peace. These many experience most of the time. It is true that they go through so-called different teachings, and in there are all sort of convoluted things. But it is necessary for the human spirit to search and examine, thorough examination of whatever one is engaged in. For if one does not do that, it may be that that particular personality is offered poison. So there is the need for continuous examination. And if really, deep within, it is not an intellectual search, then, like the words of Christ, seek and you shall find. For in so seeking spiritually, there are helps which abound and support the human spirit. That was why there was the need to differentiate between the intellectual seeking and the spiritual seeking. These are two different things. Many are thrown into confusion because they think intellectual seeking is the same thing as spiritual seeking, although they are very different. One is internal, deep within the spirit. The other one is just external, just partial knowledge to just move around. One is strategic, while the other one is tactical. The tactical one is basically the intellectual knowledge, whereas the strategic is the spiritual seeking, because it is that enables one to mature spiritually in a strategic way and mature in order to return home.
Thank you, Gregory, for answering that. Again, I liked what you said about how you can determine, if, let's say, in quotes, you're going in the right path, because you'll feel at peace, and yeah, there'll be some sensing of that peace in you. If it's something, let's say, troubling, I know you didn't use that word, but maybe that's not meant for you, so you shouldn't be going on that path. I mean, troubling does not mean that it may not be hard. The journey may not be hard. Of course, you have to work hard to get your job, or to build your home, or to earn money, whatever it is. It all requires effort. So when we say you feel at ease or feel at peace, it doesn't mean that you don't have to put effort. Now, let me think. So when we are on this journey, okay, yes, let's say what you've said, you need to keep questioning or keep examining. Is there any other sort of attitude or way you have to be to, when you are assessing or questioning or looking at something, to receive, let's say, the right guidance, or to, prod you in the right direction? Is there some attitude that we must have when we are seeking?
Through experiencing, many have discovered that they seek and keep seeking, and most of the time what they are seeking for is granted to them when they least expected it. So that one teaches us, first, not to give up. That means to be persistent, and also to be humble, not seeking to have a massive solution, but making use of the tokens which life or which creation throws in our lap. Making use of these tokens, these bits, assembling them in order to build up. That is what is required. That intrinsic humility, moving one little step at a time, just as one who wishes to go to school does not learn everything about school in one day, but stretches it, reflecting on each step, like a man or a woman who is going on a long journey does not just jump, all right, and get to the end just in 1 second, but take them in bits, in steps, in little chunks. Some form of humility, not expecting more than what he or she is able to absorb and make use of. In such a way, the human spirit matures.
What you said sounds like what Jesus said, be as little children. Is that what you are saying?
Very similar.
And is there any further, when Jesus said, be as little children, I know you've answered the question about the attitude that we must have or the way we must approach seeking. Is there anything further we can learn when to be like children, little children? Is there something else how we can be?
Well, the thing is that if we want to learn from the world, be like little children, the best way of learning is to become such. And then the responses we will get will mature us. So it is of no use saying this or that.
Yes.
When it says be as little children, in our attitude, we shall adopt that and follow or take what he has given to us as a guideline. The responses which return to us will help us to mature. Then we would have learned that which we need to learn.
I must say, when I observe the children, they're always curious. They're always asking the parents questions. What's this? What's that? They always are showing that interest. When they're there, when you see them. Okay, now, yes, listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program, and the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is taking things for granted. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you are outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. And just if you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to find more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Another question for you, Gregory. I'm sort of jumping a little bit, but I will just ask you this one. Must we know everything?
The question is, must we know everything? Of course, we cannot know everything because we lack the capacity of knowing everything. But the capacity of that which we need to know is very large. What we need to know is only that which will be of benefit to us as human spirits who are striving to become matured human spirits or self-conscious human spirits. That is what we need to know, and how we need to go about it so that we are matured. Such help as what we need to know can be found in the work, or is found in the work, in the light of truth.
Thank you for that. Let's go. We said one of the questions you can ask is about how we, why was I born, or and when I die, where am I going, and what is my purpose? And then you could also say, who am I? That's another question. And so can you explain what is the human being, or who is the I that we talk about when we say I?
It's quite remarkable that the question I keeps coming up, because we already mentioned in this discussion that it is the inner core of the personality that sort of activates many things. That inner core is of spirit. That spirit needs to mature in order to be able to make use of those things that it has found in creation in a beneficial way. Like we had discussed many a time, that inner core started as an unconscious spirit germ. It is not perfect. It needs to perfect itself, in the sense it needs to come to maturity as a self-conscious human spirit. As we all know, whatever is perfect does not need further development because it's perfect. That it's undergoing further development and is seeking already confirms it is not perfect. And it needs to cover up its imperfection in the sense that it needs the knowledge, the awareness, the consciousness to understand within its capability and capacities. So the I is the inner man or the inner woman that is seeking to become conscious or to become self-conscious. Self-conscious in order to be able to participate as a human spirit who is alive in this wonderful creation and contribute to it in its expansion. So that I is that which is alive, striving to become self-conscious.
Thank you for that. And you mentioned also the laws of creation, something that we need to be aware of, or laws of nature. So again, these laws, do we actually, how can I say, do we need to know them in you've talked about consciousness. Do we need to be conscious of them, or can we just sort of discover, let's say, like a farmer might, he may not have much prior knowledge as to start farming, or let's say he follows things that he observes, and then and he just sort of learns as he goes, So my question is this really: are we meant to be fully conscious of, how the laws work, or we just, let's say, is it trial and error that you just try this, and then you see, oh yes, when I plant this grows well, and then this one, it doesn't grow so well because maybe you didn't do something that you need to do to make it work, or the soil wasn't right, or something like that. So my question is really, are we meant to, let's say, receive of guidance somehow direct to, maybe somebody, some nature, let's say we know In the past, we discussed there are nature beings. Are we meant to be in communication with the nature being to sort of tell us, plant this here and do this? Or can we go by trial and error, try this, try that, and then just learn as we go, and then say, okay, now I know in my experience this actually works, and so on?
As we all know, that nature or creation basically has movement or motion as a basic law. So we as creatures in creation also need to move, need to adjust to this motion. So it therefore means we have to keep adjusting ourselves, because this motion varies from place to place, from one realm to another. So we cannot remain still. Only through spiritual experiencing can one experience this motion aright. What one has here on earth is only a very minute reflection of it. Therefore, if one is busy here on earth in some form of endeavor or another, that's the process that that person undergoes is such that he or she can absorb the experiences to the frontal brain and pass them to the back brain. And from the back brain, it will now go to the spirit, where the spirit makes use of those experiences. That is the way it's supposed to be, in such a way that the spirit now matures, and in its movement, it comes into contact with various forces. These forces could be the forces of nature, that of water, or of fire, or of the earth. All these are maturing. But most of the time, many may not know that they are maturing spiritually, because it's as if something is placed before their eyes, such that they can focus on that which they need to do. So it doesn't mean that first you have to be doing trial and error. As long as this human spirit follows its intuition, this so-called trial and error could be minimized. Of course, in the past, maybe thousands of years ago, many were able to communicate with the so-called nature beings. After all, many people at that time, when they had some injuries, they were able to speak to those who could see the radiation from out of herbs. And in following the gentle guidance of these nature beings, they were able to provide medication and heal many an ailment. But as time went on, these were relegated to the background. And of course, now we know the results of these things. So there are no fixed rules that one needs to follow in these matters, other than to be open to guidance, and to be on the alert. For a human spirit who is alert is able to perceive the vibrations, which vibrations are helpful in its maturing.
Thank you for that. Now, I want to talk about, let's say, things that are happening in the world. Um, you know, for example, uh, we go out on, let's say, leisure trips to nature and let's say the beach or some mountains or something like this for us, and we go there, have a picnic, take our food with us, or even buy food there, and then we just throw the rubbish on the beach, or just you know leave it wherever it is, a mountain or wherever it is. And of course, thousands and thousands, maybe millions of people come in a year to let's say some beauty spot of nature, and it gets a lot of rubbish accumulating, and of course, let's say the places are far away, and then people are not really cleaning up after that. They're just dumping it, and now, well, there's so many examples really. We've seen in the ocean some documentary on the BBC with David Attenborough, pointing out how the plastic is now even that we have dropped in the beach or somewhere on land somehow has reached the oceans, and the whales and pretty much every sea creature has got more particles of this plastic inside them now, and of course it affects them too. So what I'm saying, Gregory, is we take things for granted. This is what our topic is all about, and somehow we keep, let's say at home, we don't throw this rubbish like that. We throw it in the bin, and but somehow we behave different when we are outside of the house, as if it's like you don't care. How can a human being be like this? That that we're like funny. It's a bit funny. We know what to do when we're at home. Of course, I can't say everybody's like this, but in general, I would say you take care of your home. But outside, we seem to, let's say, don't care. What could be? How could this be? It's the same human being.
It's assumed or is taken for granted that the human spirit has a free will to decide on what it needs to do or how to do it. That means the human spirit has a free will to sow a seed, and therefore whatever it has sown, it has a responsibility for it. It is difficult to give out rules that you must do this, you must not do this. What may be advised is to keep the heart of your thoughts pure in order to bring peace and be happy. When one soils one's garment, one doesn't like it. Now, when one soils the environment by such activities as you mentioned, whether it's the environment nearest to you or furthest away from you, soiling of the environment is soiling of the environment. One has sown, and the responses will fall back here or hereafter. So there is the need for the human spirit to know what responsibility is. Its immediate responsibility in creation, not only for itself, but also for its neighbors. By neighbors, one is not referring only to fellow human spirits, but also to the plants, to the animals, to even the beings which we ourselves cannot see physically, which beings made it possible for man first to incarnate here on earth in order to experience. It should also be made very clear that the earth is not its home. It's only been granted an opportunity for some time in order to experience. So, when one is provided an opportunity and one soils that opportunity, messes up the environment, that is tantamount to sort of the lack of appreciation of what life is all about. One can easily imagine how you are a guest in someone's house and you soil the house. One can easily imagine you are a guest as a human spirit in creation and you soil a creation. You create catastrophes. You create chimeras, not only physically, also in our thoughts. Thoughts of hatred, thoughts of animosity, thoughts of wickedness. All this may not be seen physically, but they do exist. So it is important for the maturing human spirit to know that it is a guest, a human spirit who is a guest, and therefore the opportunities presented for it to mature should be made use of in a very nice way and not to create absurdities and catastrophes, which absurdities we just mentioned. You mentioned in the examples you gave, in which plastic, people throw things away in a careless manner, not caring to keep the environment tidy, which environment is not only a physical environment, but also the ethereal environment or the animistic environment. These are all the things that the human spirit, as a guest in creation, must take into consideration.
Thank you for that answer. I'm thinking, we've talked, there are laws of nature and laws of creation, and on the earth we have earthly laws, human laws. Let's say you park, I know this sounds a bit mundane, but if you park, leave your car, let's say, or you don't pay for your parking, and it's a parking, you have to get a ticket for that. You have to buy the ticket for that, and you don't do that, obviously you get a fine, or you overstay and you get a fine. And so my question is, accountability. We know the laws of nature. You reap what you sow, and of course it's on a different timetable than let's say the earthly laws, the human laws. But my question is this: we just talked about human beings and how they sort of be careless with the rubbish that they throw out in places of nature and so on. Do you think earthly laws should be there for? I think they are there, but the thing is, maybe they need to be more severe to make people wake up, to take notice of these things. Do you think that is a way to help the human being to, to behave the right way? Like I say, mentioned in the house, you don't have the rule. There's no law in the world, as far as I'm aware. You have to keep your house tidy, but people most generally they do it. And then outside, there is some law about littering, but maybe it's not enforced. So, do you think there has to be something more severe to shake the people through earthly laws that can change the attitude of the human beings. Are you there, Gregory?
Okay, sorry, it was muted.
It was muted, okay.
Only through education, all right, can a personality become aware of its duties, of its tasks and responsibilities. On the one hand, one talks about the intellectual responsibilities, and on the other hand, the spiritual responsibilities. These go hand in hand. One has to be careful as not to make rules which become absurdities through punishment, which punishment becomes an absurdity. In some countries, you find they put some fines in place, and if one is unable to pay this fine, goes to prison. So it will not make any sense for if the people, there are many people who do such things, that may say about 1 million people, are you going to put 1 million people in prison when they cannot pay the fines? So the human spirit or the personality needs to be educated to show the consequences of their activities. That should be brought back to them in a more vivid way, such that in quiet reflection they will take heed, rather than having drastic laws, which laws now make it impossible for people to even do anything because they live in fear. It is not fear that should be sown, but make it possible to see the consequences of the activities. One way or the other. It is not easy, but if there's persistence, many a person will come to realize that the cleanliness of the environment is of benefit not only to himself but also to others. So there must be a balance in between this so-called crime and punishment or whatever.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Another thing that I would like to look at is in the field of, let's say, health, where, okay, one example I could say, I mean, it's not, doesn't sound to be as serious in today's world, but when the mobile phone first came out, I mean, people were not aware about the risk of the radiation. I'm not saying it's not there now; it's still there, but you know, the radiation, which, you know, you put your phone right next to your ear, and while you are on the phone, it's like heating up your ear. It's you know, and obviously, if it's radiation, I don't know if people can get cancer or not, but you can certainly think that it's not ideal to have this sort of high energy coming into you. I mean, now you see people wearing even headphones so that the mobile is not actually right on their ear. So what I want to ask, Gregory, when such inventions are made, and we don't know when you make them that there's going to be such risks, you know, of this, let's say, radiation here in this case. Is there a way we can know it? I mean, before we invent some invention, to, let's say, have an idea of these risks, or is just the only way we know it is when we invent it and then you know, put it into production, and then customers use it? Obviously, I mean, it's almost, what I'm trying to say is, maybe you invent something, you don't even know that there could be some risk coming out of it until people start using it in numbers, because obviously everybody is different, like you say. Some people are affected, maybe more sensitive. The radiation affects them more seriously. Others, it doesn't really touch them at all. So my question is there a way of being aware of these dangers of the inventions that we make, sort of before they go out to the public, let me say like that?
Of course, there is a way, and that's why there is the testing of these devices in the best possible way before they go out to the public.
And so yes, but then okay, in that regard, I mean, I actually now I'm thinking even of medicines. Yes, they test them for some time before they give it out to the general public. So okay, so my question then would be, like I said, everybody is different, and maybe my question is this: then let's say you as an individual person, you want to buy a mobile, and somehow you're a sensitive person, and maybe in your case it's not a good idea to do to have this mobile, or to even to. So what I'm asking really is, should we have, I was in a way putting the, you could say, the responsibility onto the manufacturer for producing a product that is safe, but is there also a responsibility on the user to, who's not the inventor of the product, but he's the user, the consumer? Is there a way that the consumer can take some protective measures, or become aware of, some risks that might be with the product?
Where is man's intuition in this? Is man not supposed to be always in an active mode to at least perceive the consequences of many things? As long as one's intuition is fully active, that personality is able to perceive some of these things even before they take root. For each person is different. So you do not expect a manufacturer to bring the whole world to test a product before that product is released. That is just not possible. Therefore, the manufacturer may do the bit, what they also call random testing, and minimize the risks that may be there. But there's also the responsibility on the user. For when you make a purchase, it is done out of one's free will. And because it's done out of one's free will, it's also incumbent on the buyer to use his own innate abilities to be able to make a decision. A very simple example: look at those who manufacture clothes. In the past, when we made procurement of clothes, we ensured they were fully well sewn. No part was torn. We felt covered and we're happy. Nowadays, many a person goes out there to procure torn clothes and to cover themselves. Some don't even want to wear any clothes anymore. They prefer to go in the nude, even in the cold or in the sunny climate. What would you say? Would you say it's the fault of the manufacturer? Man has a free will to determine how he or she needs to proceed.
Thank you for such, I was going to say, clear and great examples that just illustrate, the responsibilities of the person or individual, and you could say on the other side the manufacturer or the inventor. So thank you so much for being so clear about that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is taking things for granted. You can join in on the discussion by calling, texting or using WhatsApp. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 313 66. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you are interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to get more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'm going to spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. We've talked a lot, Gregory, about responsibility, about the natural laws or laws of nature, creation, and our intuition, and and the journey of life of growing through our experiences, examining everything that comes across our path, and learning. Always being open and curious to learn things in life. Something you could say a little bit different, but again from something that Jesus said, let your answer be yea or nay. Whatever is more than this comes from evil. So I'm gonna ask you, what does it mean? But I will also say something, give a situation, let's say, like you said, not everybody is going to know everything. So when you give an answer, yea or nay, can you really do that when you are, let's say, not knowing things in detail? And let's say somebody asks you, can you do a particular job? Let's say it's an interview, and it's something. Of course, if you've done something like that similar, then you can say, oh yes, I have. But maybe there's something I'm trying to think of some example here that I could say that you won't know everything in a way, but you will say, yes, I can do it. So is it possible really to say yea or nay in every situation? Because when Jesus says everything outside of that cometh of evil.
The advice is based on clarification, such that there is no contradiction. To add to what you just said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. So if you say yes and no at the same time, it means you have a structure which is divided against itself. Such will not stand. And that is why one has to be consistent. Consistency means that those things which are of similar nature are brought together and those which are not homogeneous are separated. Only in homogeneity will you have a connection. Where there is no homogeneity between one and another, then the center cannot hold. And when you build your structures, the expressions, you will wish or you will strive to be consistent and not to be destructive. So, the idea is that we wish to know where one stands. For anything in between, which is yes and no at the same time, brings confusion. And that is why we have a house divided against itself cannot stand. Whereas a house which swings is in harmony with its part will definitely stand. So these words of Christ must be taken in context so as to understand the way man should form his structures, which structures could be the language that he or she wishes to speak. Nowadays, we have the world of politics, where what you say is not what you mean, and what you mean is not what you are saying. This is referred to as diplomacy. So you can now sell something, sell poison to others under the guise of diplomacy. Therefore, it is said, let your yes be yes, and your no be no. It's either yes, you build up structures which will hold in accordance with the laws through which everything came into existence. Those are the laws of creation. Or you do not do that, and everything forms into a quagmire. So man has to choose where you wish to belong, to build up or to destroy.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Now, you talked about their actually forgotten exactly the words you used, but something came to me when you were talking about people who are scammers. They sell you an idea, and then, but actually they're not. They don't mean. They're just trying to take your money at the end of the day. They're not going to give you a product, and let's say you get tempted, or you join in whatever it is, the scheme that they're putting forward. And as I say, sometimes, and there's other companies who are the genuine companies, let's say, they say the same words, same product or something, and then obviously they're genuine, and you will get your product that you asked for, or service that you asked for. So in a way, what I'm saying is, you said it in a way, your intuition must be alert all the time to spot when something, let's say, is not right, or there's a lie actually underneath what they are saying. Because obviously when you just listen to the words alone, it seems to make sense. Only that you see, what you may not recognize is the intention when somebody is saying their words. This is what, let's say you're going to get a particular return for a particular investment, and then each company is saying that, but one of those companies or few of those companies have no intention to release their money or product. So my question again on that is, Gregory, can you discover the intention of the person or whoever is speaking? Because the words alone don't give it. They sound the same. And even, as I say, yeah.
When one allows one's intuition to be on the alert, Many things are picked up from mere discussion. Even many things are avoided. For it is said, prevention is better than cure. Therefore, one should ensure that he or she is truly alive and search or seek for that which is lasting. That is, those structures of the spirit. If one doesn't focus on such, then everything becomes or falls down to the intellect, where many can hide words, say one thing and mean another thing. Therefore, the human spirit must be on the alert. Not only spiritual alertness, but also intellectual alertness. It means you must examine, else you have taken things for granted, and in indolence, not only intellectual indolence, but also spiritual indolence, you will be duped in very many ways. But should one examine everything intellectually and spiritually, many things will become very clear. Spiritually, it is a fact that when one seeks, one will find. The same way intellectually, if one strives for physical knowledge, one is gradually guided to know. In the first instance, why should one place oneself in the hands of dupes? Because you want to gamble. Whom do you expect to find in gambling circles? People who are truthful? You yourself do not wish to work hard, and you have gone towards, or you have gravitated towards those people who have similar tendencies like yourself. What should be the expectation? So it is best to first be on the alert and extract and crush those terrible tendencies that make one gravitate towards those chimeras, such that those things will have no impact. One will not be drawn towards those things.
Thank you again, Gregory, for giving us the bigger picture of, how could you say, our tendencies for, let's say, making life easy, or somehow trying to get something for maybe not nothing but very little effort. So of course, what do you expect when you do that? So thank you for clearing that one. What I want to talk to you about now is, in a way, is, let's say, we talked about scammers or dupes there. In a way, it's a similar thing with spiritual knowledge there, or let's say there are preachers or pastors who are under the guise of the religion or some spiritual teaching, asking money for the so-called church and so on, and then, almost, let's say, well, not almost, enslaving, you could say, hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe thousands in a particular community. People just, you could say, following just what we are being told. and then one or two individuals somehow see, oh, I'm coming every week, and this happens every week, that they want us to do this, and then yet I've come really to seek spiritual, let's say, peace or spiritual understanding, and yet these people seem to be asking for material things. So what's a question for that? I would say, okay, Gregory, so the question I would say, Gregory, do you think, yes, you said use your intuition and being alert, and when you do that, of course, you will discover what people are up to. And then, do you think, Gregory, is also good when people go through these experiences, they share? You hear that a lot nowadays, that somebody's been through something and then they share, let's say on social media, or that this is what's going on in this organization and so on. And then through the internet, as I say, in this modern world of communication, somebody can say, okay, here's something else you can, what I'm trying to say is basically, is it purely an individual effort to find a way, let's say, to a good home, if I can say like that, or to find answers to questions? Or do you think it can also be done through sharing? Like, as I say, in this modern world now, it would be through this technology of social media. But of course, it doesn't have to be. It could be just talking with your people around you that are, that you're trusted friends. So would you say that discussion is a good thing to make you aware of things, to discover things?
I must say it is sort of strange question, but all very true. Because when what is mentioned today as social media has always been there in the past. We had this as rumors that spread from one village to another, where people met and discussed. It's only the so-called technology has made it massive, so the rumors or whatever knowledge can easily spread around. In the case of churches, one should always ask oneself questions. Are these servants of these churches, are they the ones who appoint places in heaven? Or are the servants of the mosque or of the temples, are they the ones who allocate spaces? They themselves who are not even sure. Again, all these things boil down on indolence. For as long as the human spirit refuses to seek diligently, as long as the human spirit refuses to examine very deeply, but relies on the conclusion of others, then it stands the risk of being swept away. Even the discussions which we have in this forum, we have always said, never take it for granted. Never assume it to be correct. You reflect on your own, at your own time, in your own space and time, in your own silence. Reflect over everything, examine everything, question everything. And in doing so, depending on one's receptiveness, one is able to come to a conclusion. You examine not only with your intellect, but also with one's intuitive perception. But again, that is the most odious and difficult, Because what one has not been doing is not easy. All of a sudden they say, okay, now I've examined. You have to examine in different folds. So when one does that, you yourself will find that which you are seeking from others. If one remains calm, the answer to that has already been granted to you. If, however, you ignore your own healthy capacities and rely on others who do not have those healthy capacities, they can only give you that which they have, albeit it could be confusion. And like we keep saying, you cannot give someone what you do not have. Why then do you ask others to give you clarity which you do not have? Therefore, the human spirit needs to examine vigorously, examine thoroughly, and come to clearer conclusions. Then it needs not be jumping from one church to another, from one mosque to another, or from one temple to another. It needs not waste his time looking at others, for the time allocated to the human spirit is precious. It should make use of that time to educate itself, not only intellectually, but also spiritually. So, asking others to grant you what they don't have is asking for catastrophes, for they can give it to you. Here in this forum, like we mentioned, you have the work in the light of truth. In the preface, it makes it very clear that you must examine very vigorously and not take anything for granted. Only through such vibrant motion can one come to a final conclusion, and in the process of coming to final conclusion, it is strengthened in its activities.
Thank you, Gregory, for again pointing the way to, to really how we should be seeking. So, dear listeners, again, if you're interested to pick up the Grail message in the light of truth, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And you're listening to Blessed Radio. This is the spiritual discussion program, and of course the aim of our show is to introduce you to the Grail message. And the topic we're discussing tonight is taking things for granted, which I think by now you'll realize is not a good thing. If you want to join us with any questions or comments, the number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, we've been saying we must ask questions. We must be in a spiritual quest. And so one of the questions would be life after death. That is something common to every spiritual teaching. And but the funny thing about that, Gregory, is that, and even we have mentioned, for example, I don't want to go into it really too much here tonight, but obviously we have discussed in the past there's something called reincarnation. But the thing is, none of us really most of us, let's say, have no memory of reincarnation, and we can't really, let's say, in quotes, know about life after death, since we haven't, got a, let's say, just a direct experience of that, since it doesn't happen till you do pass on. So when we are told there's something, or let's say we hear that there's something called life after death, and you said that we must examine everything. So let's examine that. Is there a way? I mean, first of all, okay, let's start with this one. Is there really life after death? How can we examine that there is life after death?
That is a basic question and a very good one. But the question is supposed to be an after question. The pre-question that should be asked is, what am I doing here? Who am I? Only when the human spirit or the personality has come to clarity through impressions, through its own intuitive perceptions as to what tasks it has as a personality, only then will it come to clarity to know why it has incarnated here on earth. It is no use trying to find out where you're going. Completely useless. It is helpful to know where you're coming from. At least for an earth life, there was a starting point. The starting point is very clear to everyone, albeit you were born. So each personality should first ask, is the physical body all that there is? These are the first questions. If yes, then there is no need for any morality. If no, then what is it that activates the physical body? Such a question will keep wrapping the personality, and before long, if the spirit, which is the inner man or the inner woman, is truly alive, it will start sensing things. It will start interpreting things differently. It will now know that inner personality transcends that which is earthly. Now, if we know it transcends that which is earthly, that means it has always been there, even before it was born to the earth. Then it has found the answer. Just like it is found in science when it is said energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but can be transformed from one to another. If it cannot be created, it means it has always been there, and energy is spirit. So if one finds out where one is coming from, the future can easily be taken care of, because the future we talk about is based on what we as human spirits have planted it to be. That is, the decisions which we have made will inevitably form the basis for our future. whether it is here, where we now know that the physical body is only temporal. Therefore, the question of life after death is not a real question. It's like a misnomer. Death should be considered death of the physical body, that which is temporal, but not death of the spirit. Death of the spirit only means that the inner core reverts back to its original state. These are the things that the walk in the light of truth affords many a human or many a seeking human soul. It affords it so that it attains its clarity through vigorous examination. So, must you know where life will lead you? Yes. If you must know, then keep the heart of your thoughts pure. Do that which is noble in accordance with the laws of creation. Many will say, oh, we don't know the laws of creation. But that is not true. For everyone who is on earth, who is in quotes alive, breathes in and breathes out. Everyone feels good when something good is done to them, when some help is afforded them. So these are situations which many a person experiences, but like the topic of today, takes it for granted without delving in to understand what it is all about. So, is there life after death? Is a question which one will now ask many, knowing the little that we now know. The answers can be found in your present life. Where were you before you incarnated? If that question is a spiritual question, then the answer is very clear. In fact, it is the intellect that has doubts, because the intellect is only bound to the conceptions of the earthly space and time. That which is energy, which transcends the earthly, finds it ridiculous that you be asking what it already knows. Therefore, one should strive to live in the present and do the best that it can in order to move forward.
Thank you, Gregory, for again providing us with a broad outline, no, not broad outline, broad picture, or the bigger picture, let's say, giving us the perspective that we need to address these questions. And so since we have now, you've gone in that path, somehow it struck me that life on the earth is quite a sort of, I'm going to use the word unique in a way, because on the you said we started as a spirit or spirit germ, from, let's say, the spiritual world, and then we traveled down to this earth, and we received the body that we live on, that we used to stay on this earth, and then that with that body we also received the intellect, and that sort of explains that we have the spirit working and the intellect working. And then you mentioned this word about doubts. The doubts are coming from the intellect. So if really it was only a spirit on its own with no other body, it would just, let's say, automatically when I say automatically, it would not have any, how can I say, obstacles to see things as they are. But on the earth, because we have this physical body and we have the intellect acting, we do get a, let's say, I don't want to use the word diversion, but it gets another picture, and so the spiritual picture, and you get the earthly intellectual picture, and obviously, if you're not really alert to what picture you're looking at, and not being aware of what that picture that it is, you can easily get confused. So my question and all that, would you say the earth, because the life on the earth and the lesser life before the earth, before we were born, I was trying to use the word unique, because as I say, you've mentioned that we have this intellect or the earthly body on this earth, which we obviously don't have when where we come from in spiritual world. So, okay, let me ask like this: what is the purpose of the intellect and the and the spiritual working together? What is the because obviously we can't avoid it. We have both. We have the spirit and the earthly, and what is the purpose of that? And how can basically let's start with that.
Well, thanks for that particular question. When one needs to work in an environment, you need to put on the necessary garments for that environment in order to make yourself understandable. That means you need to learn the language of that environment. Else, how would you interact with that environment when you are not wearing the appropriate garment? It's as if it's oblivious. Therefore, the intellect, which has arisen out of the frontal human brain, is to assist in that. The way that it has been ordained from the beginning is that impressions from the spirit impact on the back brain. The back brain then passes these impressions fairly transformed to the frontal brain, which is the seat of the intellect. And then the intellect becomes the chief executive that will make it earthly or understandable, such that these impressions which have been sent from the spirit are made available and understandable. For a very simple example, take the case of music. There are different musicians. They perceive differently. And music is an art. And this is streamed through to the frontal brain. It is the duty of the so-called musician or the artist to compose his music or her music in such a way that we enjoy it and say, yeah, we said this is music, this is beautiful. Now, that is the purpose of the intellect. If, however, it doesn't go that way, where you now have that the intellect doesn't receive impressions from the spirit, either due to some form of problems or the spirit is too weak. Then we have a scenario where the intellect assumes the command and act within its own very limited conceptions of its space and its time. What do you then have? It takes all the material it needs locally. Whether it is right or wrong is unable to say, for most of these capacities are from within the spirit. So we have a scenario where things run into a quagmire, very limited understanding. And that is why you find in many of an interpretation of a spiritual script, biblical scripts, religious script, in many of the interpretations, these things are subjected to intellectual interpretations and they become very narrow. And many now take it that if somebody has blinded you, you should blind the other person. So what you then have, the whole world becomes blind because of the limitation that has been placed into all these things. Therefore, that which is of spirit should be left to the spirit, and the intellect is only granted the opportunity to make those things which are of spirit earthly, such that people at least can comprehend it, as you have in the case of music. The intellect has its own usefulness. The examples you gave, where you have a very simple one, where cars are parked and people have to take care of it, all these things are temporal and they are intellectual, but they are intended to help put order in place. As you had in many situations, order is the first law in heaven, where everything is well ordered.
Thank you, Gregory. I think at this point we've pretty much come to the end of our show, so rather than ask another question, it might be a good idea to just read something from the grail message. I actually haven't got something ready, but I just thought let me sort of begin something which was the inspiration for the topic for tonight, I could say. Because all this time we've been talking about, like we said, the topic is taking things for granted. You're assuming you know something, in reality you don't know it. Or you express an opinion, and really, if you're truly humble, you would say, I actually don't know. You know, for example, we talked about life after death, and who can really say, oh, I absolutely know there's life after death. But what you said, Gregory, in answer to that, was that there's a logical way of coming to clarity about it, because you said that there's energy, which is and energy is also spirit, you can say, and so it exists and you can't destroy it. And so it's like, you could say, same way you could say, it's not, you can't have something from nothing. It must be something that produces something. So if you have exist as a human being on this earth, you must have come from somewhere. And it also means that you just, even though you die, on the earthly level, it must go somewhere. Even if we're just talking on the body part, just on the physical level of talking of the body, yes, came from the earth and it goes back to the earth, yes. But also there's something that activates the body, which we have said is the spirit. So it must have come, since it was not, it doesn't get destroyed, it must have come from somewhere, and it must go somewhere. So in a way, I've sort of said a few words there. Now, let me see. So as I say, I wanted to read something from the lecture that sort of inspired it, this topic, even though the title of the lecture may not be obvious as a to make sense to that. But so the way this, let's just say, this topic came tonight was from a lecture called Spiritism in the Grail Message. And I think again I'll just read a few paragraphs only. So here we go. Spiritism, mediumship. A hot battle rages over them, for and against. It is not my task to say anything about its opponents and their eager denials. That would be a waste of time, for every logical thinker needs only to read of the way the so-called tests and investigations are carried out to perceive the complete ignorance and definite incapacity of these experimenters. Why, if I want to investigate the earth, I must adapt myself to its nature. If on the contrary, I wish to explore the sea, I have no choice but to adapt myself to the nature of water, and to use such aids as conform to that. To tackle water with a spade and shovel, or with a drilling machine, would not carry me far in my investigations. Or should I perhaps deny the existence of water because my spade passes right through it, contrary to what happens when I place it in a more familiar solid earth? Or because I cannot walk upon water as I do upon solid earth? Opponents will declare, but that is different, for I can both see and feel that water exists, and nobody can deny it. How long ago was it that man energetically denied the existence of myriads of colorful organisms in a drop of water, which every child now knows about? And why was their existence denied? Only because man could not see them. It was not until an instrument adapted to their nature had been invented that man could recognize, see and observe this new world. I'm going to stop there. We've actually come to the end of our time on the show. So thank you, listeners, for joining us tonight. Hope you found the topic taking for granted interesting and I don't want to say informative, but enlightening. Brother Gregory, would you like to say something to the listeners, to say goodbye?
Well, I wish them all the best, and they should pluck up the courage to finally examine this work in the light of truth.
Thank you for that. And as Gregory has mentioned there, dear listeners, you can go to this website called grailmessage.com. So it's www.grail, grail, message, message.com, and you can find the work in the light of truth, the Grail Message there, or if you want, you can get information there. So thank you again, listeners, for being with us, and you can join us again next week, Tuesday, as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. when we'll have another topic. And I wish you all a great week. All the best.